The Silent Night of Okinawa, May 1945. May 4th, 1945. Okinawa. A humid, oppressive darkness drapes the jungle like a heavy curtain. You can almost taste the damp air, mixed with the metallic tang of gun oil. Somewhere in the distance, the faint crack of a rifle echoes, followed by the sickening thud of a body hitting the earth. Corporal Raymond Miller is crouched low in mud-soaked fatigues, his breath coming in shallow bursts. His hands, once steady in Detroit's Ford Service Department, now tremble with grief and resolve. Just days ago, his younger brother Michael was killed, not by a grenade, not by bullets flying in broad daylight, but by a failure invisible to most, a corroded battery connection in an infrared scope. Raymond's gaze flickers to the heavy 30-pound lead-acid battery pack strapped to his back, powering the revolutionary M3 infrared carbine. This was the future of night combat, a weapon that allowed American soldiers to see spectral white silhouettes of Japanese soldiers lurking unseen in the pitch-black jungle. Yet the scope's glow was fading, dimming with every patrol. He knows the enemy has learned their tactics while waiting for flares to burn out, attacking in the deep shadows where American eyes see nothing more than ghosts. But tonight is different. Tonight, Raymond kneels in the dense brush, scrubbing corroded terminals with a blade he fashioned from a spent .50 caliber shell casing, the ingenuity of a mechanic turned soldier. 30 seconds is all it takes. The image sparkles into life, sharp and bright, a ghost suddenly made visible. He sees movement silent, deliberate somewhere 50 yards out. Not just one, but dozens. He tightens his grip on the M3. The game has changed. The eerie glow of the infrared spotlight pierces the jungle's cloak. Japanese soldiers, confident in their invisibility, now become glowing phantoms on Raymond's scope. There's a deadly dance with death they cannot see coming. The battery trick isn't just a repair. It's a weapon of vengeance, turning grief into a silent storm of precise, devastating fire. In 2 nights, Raymond's clever fix and deadly marksmanship will bring down 155 enemy soldiers, wiping out infiltration attempts that plagued his regiment. But this is only the beginning. How does one mechanic's know-how become a turning point in the brutal fight for Okinawa? And how does a car battery become the silent instrument of survival? The night had already swallowed the jungle when Corporal Raymond Miller, his fingers worked feverishly against the chilled metal of the car battery terminals affixed to his back. The jungle sounds the chirp of unseen insects. The distant crackle of gunfire were a distant echo against the urgency in his mind. His specialized duty as a sniper was simple in theory, but brutal in practice: to extinguish enemy movements where visibility faded. The M3 infrared scope, revolutionary but flawed, was only as good as the power behind it, heavy lead-acid car battery designed for trucks, not soldiers. Raymond had watched comrades fall because their scopes failed in the darkness. The connection corroded by unrelenting island humidity. Tanks of power flickered like dying embers. Tonight, he refused to be one of those fallen. Using a knife clawed from a spent shell, he meticulously scraped away rust and grime, reconnecting wires with the precision of a surgeon. A few crank turns on the car battery's breaker switch, and the scope suddenly flared to life, casting ghostly outlines glowing with eerie white light. The jungle was transformed. What once was invisible to the naked eye was now a theater of glowing enemies, moving inside the darkness. From this bright specter of death, Raymond began to rise, stalking silently through the thick brush. The eerie silence was punctuated by his controlled breathing, the click of the bolt cycling on the M3, and the distant screams of confusion from the enemy. Every pull of the trigger was both science and art, a calculated burst aimed precisely to unweave the enemy's advance. By dawn, the tally stood staggering: 155 Japanese soldiers killed in 2 nights. The trick with the car battery had turned an ordinary sniper into a one-man nightmare. Word spread quickly down the lines. soldiers whispering of the ghost who wielded invisible light as a weapon of righteous fury. But behind the numbers, Raymond's mind was a tangle of exhaustion, grief, and grim determination. The war was far from over, and his tiny lifeline of glowing technology was fragile. If the battery failed again, who would be next to fall? The M3 infrared sniper, carbine a weapon, as much a marvel of technology as a burden on the soldier hung heavy in Raymond Miller's hands. The gun clocked in at just over 5.5 pounds, but it felt much heavier in the humid, tangled underbrush of Okinawa. This was no ordinary rifle. It was a gas-operated, semi-automatic carbine chambered in .30 caliber, modified to host an infrared scope that could see in total darkness. The scope was an active infrared device, powered by the bulky lead-acid battery pack strapped to Raymond's back. Its glow was invisible to the naked eye, but through it, the jungle became a ghostly carnival of stark white shapes against black shadows. The maximum effective range for the system was about 125 yards, just shy of a football field as length, and its precision was both a gift and curse. Beyond that range, the mystical glow faded, leaving the shooter blind. Raymond had grown intimately familiar with every nuance of its operation under brutal combat conditions. The infrared spotlight, mounted atop the scope, bathed targets in a pale light imperceptible to the enemy, but illuminating their every twitch and movement. While the M3 was originally designed for short-range night combat, Raymond's jury-rigged battery fix gave him uninterrupted power to maintain a deadly vigil through entire nights. The carbine's bullet. .30 caliber carbine rounds were lighter than standard rifle bullets, but packed enough punch to stop enemy combatants wearing lightweight jungle gear. The cyclic rate was semi-automatic, about 750 rounds per minute, but Raymond fired in controlled bursts. Each shot triggered a silent death, pulling enemy patrols from the shadows into the cold embrace of American justice. But even this cutting-edge gear had shortcomings. The battery was heavy and life-limited, the scope fogged under rain, and the dark, humid jungle was a relentless enemy of electronics. Raymond's ingenuity with the car battery was what kept the system alive, transforming technology as fragile limitations into a lethal extension of his own will, and setting the stage for the silent massacre to follow. The M3 infrared carbine was a unique weapon, born of the desperate need to see in the night as thick jungle shadows where traditional rifles failed. Weighing around 5.5 pounds, it was a modification of the earlier M2 carbine, designed to be lightweight yet deadly. It sacrificed iron sights entirely, relying on an infrared sniper scope to locate enemy combatants in total darkness. The sniper scope was an active infrared device with a spotlight mounted directly on top of the scope body, shining invisible light that illuminated enemy movements like ghosts painted in white. The weapon's effective range was limited around 125 yards in optimal conditions, but within that pale radius, it was devastating. The 15 or 30 round magazines fed the semi-automatic gas-operated system chambered in. .30 caliber rounds, packing enough punch to stop a soldier in his tracks, even through jungle gear. Carrying the heavy lead-acid battery pack on his back was the price Raymond paid for this deadly edge. The pack powered both the infrared spotlight and the sophisticated scope electronics, though battery life was short, and the unit was vulnerable to corrosion and humidity. In the hostile jungle of Okinawa, the M3 was deployed primarily on defensive patrols and special sniper missions to counter the near-invisible Japanese night infiltrations. Teams of 2 or 3 soldiers operated the system, with one man providing cover while the other aimed in the ghostly glow of the infrared scope. For Raymond Miller, the small repair on the car battery terminals hadn't just restored a tool, it had resurrected a lifeline. But the real power came not just from the hardware, it was Raymond's calm in the chaos. His mechanic's ingenuity fused with Sniper's deadly patience that transformed this fragile system into a force of silent death. the question lingering in the humid night. Could one man truly turn the tide of a battle with nothing but a battery trick and his relentless resolve? Sweat trickled down Corporal Raymond Miller's neck, mixing with the relentless drip of jungle canopy. The M3 carbine rested steady against his shoulder, its infrared sniper scope humming faintly, a sound drowned by the chorus of crickets and distant artillery. Through the eyepiece, the world shifted, black void pierced by the stark white silhouettes of Japanese infiltrators creeping toward American lines. 50 yards out, 40, they moved like wraiths, bayonets glinting faintly in starlight. They feel the weight of that backpack battery. 30 pounds of lead-acid power slung low, wires taut against his fatigues. Raymond's fix held, the scraped terminals sparkled clean, delivering uninterrupted juice to the active infrared spotlight perched atop the scope. That invisible beam washed the enemy in ghostly luminescence, turning their silent advance into a deadly parade. One by one, he squeezed the trigger. The .30 carbine round whispered out at 1,970 feet per second, punching through lightweight uniforms with surgical finality. Bodies slumped without a cry, the jungle swallowing their fall. Night one blurred into a rhythm of breath, aim, fire. Teams of two flanked him, one scanning flanks, the other reloading 15-round magazines, slick with humidity. The scope's 125-yard limit kept the carnage intimate. Beyond that, shapes dissolved into shadow. Fog tried to creep in, rain spat on the lens, but Raymond wiped it clear, his Detroit mechanic hands refusing defeat. By false dawn, the count climbed past 70 patrols shattered, infiltrations crushed before they breached the perimeter. Word rippled through the regiment like wildfire. Miller's got the night eyes. GIs muttered around foxholes, passing rations. Japanese commanders scratched heads at vanished scouts, unaware a single American wielded tomorrow's war today. But as the second night loomed, Raymond spotted something new in the glow. Larger formations, bolder movements. Were they adapting? Closing in faster? As the second night descended over Okinawa, the M3 infrared carbine operators, including Raymond Miller, braced for renewed assault. The Japanese, relentless and cunning, were no longer sending small patrols but larger, coordinated groups aiming to overwhelm the American defensive line. Yet the weapon that once had been dismissed as a gimmick became their greatest weapon of survival. Raymond's battery trick kept the infrared scope glowing strong, a lifeline in total darkness. By illuminating enemy movements up to 70 yards away as ghostly silhouettes, it turned the tide of night warfare. Operating alongside a dedicated battery carrier who secured the precious power source and carried spares, Raymond methodically worked through the dark like a specter of death, picking off enemy after enemy with measured, precise shots. This small unit success was not a mere fluke. In the first week of the Okinawa campaign, about 150 of these infrared carbines accounted for roughly 30% of all Japanese casualties caused by American rifle and carbine fire, a staggering figure highlighting the weapon's lethal effectiveness and psychological impact. Soldiers whispered of this new spectral defense, a technology that rendered the enemy's stealth tactics useless while striking terror deep into their ranks. Behind the scenes, military engineers and commanders realized that the lessons learned here would forever change night combat tactics. The technology's logistics proved challenging. From maintaining corrosive battery packs in tropical humidity to the limited range of the infrared spotlight and scope. Still, these hurdles were overcome by men like Raymond, who blended mechanical skill with lethal patience to master a weapon that was truly ahead of its time. The grim reality was clear. The battle for Okinawa was a war of shadows. And in those shadows, a single weary mechanic sniper, using a car battery trick, rewritten the rules of engagement. Yet, while the 155 enemy soldiers lay dead within 2 nights, the question persisted: what price would this new form of warfare extract from those who lived it?